There we go.
We are live, and I've lost my mouse, or I'd get away from. There we go. Hey, everybody! Happy Memorial Day, and welcome to Game Audio Hour. This is our weekly podcast where I slide this over and I read this crazy script that you get to hear every time. A weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here is where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. And this week, because it's Memorial Day, everybody's busy, except Jack and I, who have no lives. Hi, Jack!
Hey, buddy.
You know, last week I said I'm not going to say buddy anymore, and now you're saying it, and it's going to get into my vernacular again.
Well, you said you're not going to say buddy, and then you immediately said buddy.
I did, but I had to get one more out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the gamer speak. Like when we're on the Xbox, what do we say to each other? Hey, buddy.
Right, exactly.
And now I say it to everybody because I can't make myself say bro. I'm not a bro. I'm too old to do bro.
Yeah.
What do you think of bro?
I'm not a fan of it, bro.
No.
Dude is still okay.
Dude, yeah, and duder. I kind of like duder.
Yeah, duder's alright.
Dudette is one of my favorites.
Is it?
I guess it's sexist though, so we probably shouldn't do that one.
Like, yeah, I think everyone is equally dude.
Okay. In the game industry, everybody's dudish, right?
They're dudarian, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. So we're gonna go with hey dudarians. I'm turning off my AC if they're wondering what that beep is. And hey, look at my camera. It's beautiful. Those who are just listening to the show, my camera just did this amazing focus, and my room looks awesome.
It went from very like cold to very warm. Like,
Yeah.
the color changed. It was weird.
I didn't touch anything. It was my cold heart getting excited because I was now seeing you. I feel hugged when I see you.
Kyle's heart grew 3 times that day.
The one thing I do know about my room, and it sucks in HD, is that I didn't put any crown molding up. So look at like right in the center above my head. Look where the red and the white are meeting. It's the
Oh
worst.
man, you should have used some painter's tape there.
I did, and then when you peel it back, you see that because the ceiling is slightly porous, it found its way in anyway. So today we're going to talk about, because Jack and I love Ableton, and Ableton is the premier best DAW that ever existed ever, and the other guys just couldn't handle it. When we said we're going to do Ableton today, they got scared and ran.
That's exactly what happened, yeah.
Yeah, because I make crap like that up all the time. And so since it's an Ableton day, Jack, you gave me a good suggestion for what you thought that I should do, but I fear it would take a bunch of time. Do you want to talk about stuff on your end first, or do you want me just to dig in?
No, we can just talk about what you got going on.
All right. So Ableton. Who uses Ableton out there? I don't know, but the game industry needs to use it more. I use Ableton from the Arrange view, I think is what they call it. Is that what they call it, Jack? Tell me.
I believe it is called the Arrange view, yes.
And you use it from the cellular view, which is called the other
Clip
view?
view. I believe it's called the clip view.
I can't even, it's funny because, yeah, there it is, clip view. If I switch them back and forth. So some hotkeys. Let's just dig in right there. If you're in Ableton, hit the tab key. Amazing things happen because it flips over to the other side. Ableton's like 2D DAWs in one. It's got a cellular clip view up the front side, which is what you usually see when it loads up. And if you hit tab key, it flips over to the other side, which looks like, Pro Tools, Cubase, and stuff like that. One thing that I love about Ableton is that it put everything where it should be. DAWs would put the titles of tracks on the left side, typically, and then the beginning of the track, as you were playing it, would get buried under the title. It would scroll under the name of that track. And that used to drive me crazy. Many times I've made cuts where they aren't supposed to be because I wasn't really looking at the measure. I was thinking I was someplace else in the track than I really was. Or some DAWs will have hotkeys where you hit stop and it'll go back maybe at the beginning of that measure, but you have to hit stop twice to get it to go back to the beginning of that whole track. And if that confuses you, you can't tell because the track is buried underneath something. I mean, certainly there are ways to tell that the track has rolled under the name. But with Ableton, they put the names on the right. And so anything that is under the name scrolls towards the left. And so if you want to go to the beginning of the track, there's no name there to hide it. And that was one of the big features for me. What'd you think of that, Jack? Did that make a big difference to you?
No, not at all.
I knew you were going to say that. Well, it did to me, damn it.
No, I
Not
mean I learned how to use the DAW on Logic 7, so
I'm sorry.
anything that's close to Logic 7 is
Yeah.
fine. No, like yeah, like I'm barely ever in that view, so it doesn't really phase me. It did, and that wasn't really a deal breaker for me. It's
Yeah.
pretty much my flow is to just arrange all these elements in the clip view, then hit record and perform them, and then when I'm done performing, hit stop, and then I'll switch to the arrange view,
Hmm.
and then I'll draw in any automation I need or shift stuff around because I didn't sync it up right or I played it badly. So, but otherwise, like that's all my time in the arrange view.
Hmm. Another big one for me with Ableton was that, and this comes from being poor at the beginning of my career, and I'm not saying that I'm not poor now, I'm just less poor, is that I could afford DAWs that had limitations. I couldn't like go in full $400 or $500 and get like all the the bells and whistles. And I don't remember what one I was using at the time because I'd always used Cubase, but I've always also experimented with other DAWs, and like I'll spend 2 or 3 months with it to try to get used to the workflow. And one of them had a limit of how many inserts you could put on a track. And so I wasn't able to build kind of advanced audio pathways on that track. And what I liked about Ableton, even the cheapest version, when Ableton 3 came out, I think early in an earlier show I said I got started on Ableton 4, but I was digging through my closet and I saw Ableton 3. So I think it was Ableton 3 when I first started messing with it. And it had the ability to kind of add these inserts in the way that Ableton does them, and there wasn't a limitation. I thought that was really cool. But what's better than that was that the way Ableton does inserts is that they have this area, I'll put it on the screen, where you just drop devices into, and you can align them any way you want. Being a guitar player, that also appealed to me because it's like putting foot pedals together for your guitar.
Mm.
And they work from left to right. That's the way the audio is going to flow through there. They did brilliant things like putting meter bars in between each one so that if you're not getting a sound, you can find out which one is not getting any audio. Really helpful things like that. Like when you're dealing with inserts, you don't have all of those capabilities. Sure, in advanced DAWs, or if you do some advanced steps, you can figure that stuff out. But Ableton just put it right here in a straight line. Just boom, there it is. They're all lined up, and this one's not working for some reason. Maybe you chose some sort of default patch that's not working properly.
Or even it doesn't necessarily have to be something's not working. It could be that all of a sudden the signal jumps way up or jumps way down, and you want to figure out where that's happening. You don't have to necessarily disable all these plugins. You can go, oh, it's the the third one in the line. After that, the signal gets super weird.
Yeah, and
Which,
oh yeah, go ahead.
no, good.
And also, another big feature is when you want to get rid of stuff in your insert channel, with Ableton, you just select it and drop it out, and everything just slides together on both sides. But oftentimes in DAWs, when you take something out of an insert channel, it'll cause maybe a heightening of the audio, may get louder because something was dampening it, or things like that, where Ableton just makes up for that, and it doesn't get crazy on you, which I always thought was fantastic. So that's just a couple of the reasons why I loved Ableton, is because the workflow ran in a direction that I thought made sense. The inserts, I like this a lot better. And of course, you still got all the functionality of send and returns and stuff. So if you've got, if you got a submix and you want to put a bunch of stuff on it, well, you just create a return with your stuff on it, and then you send the channels to that return, and then that return goes to master. And one thing I often forget, I shouldn't say always, is when I am sending to a return, that track that I'm sending to a return, or that group of tracks I'm sending to a return, I've got to remember to tell those tracks to not send to master, but to send sends only. Do you ever run into that?
I do it so rarely that I always make sure to make it just go to the sends. But I
Hmm.
will point out that in Ableton, at least I've used Ableton, I've used Logic, I've used GarageBand, I use Reaper. I unfortunately have Pro Tools. That the whole send and return bus sort of system in Ableton is so much quicker and so much easier to see and visualize than I think any other DAW that I've worked with, at least.
Yeah, I agree. Have you ever used their external instrument plug-in?
No.
That is brilliant the way they did that. So if you wanted to use an external instrument on a track, if you had audio on a track and you wanted to send it some external compressor or something, I know this is a popular term, but I just saw it again for like the second or third time today. Some guy posted some stuff on Facebook for people to look at, and he called it plug outs because it's all his outboard gear. And I was like, I've seen that before, but it's such a perfect term because I do a lot of plug outing. And so what you do is they have. Let me go up on the screen now. I think it's official. I should share my desktop. But my pretty face is going to go away. Don't be sad.
Oh.
No, don't be sad. I'm sharing my desktop rather than the application. So if there's a pop-up and it's your mom, don't be upset. She's very affectionate. Why did you say that, Kyle Johnson? So, okay, so here's my desktop, and this is going to be extremely boring for those who are just listening to the podcast. So I'm going to try to be very verbose in my descriptions of things. Thing is not a good starting word for verbosity, right? Um, okay, so we're looking at session view. We're looking at my template. I have with Ableton, and I'm just going to start from the beginning. Like any other DAW, you can set up a template that is going to load every time the application comes up. And it is called, what do they call those when you set these things up? You do it in preferences, and I'm looking for it. It's under look and feel. I know that. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, well,
Are you
anyway.
sure?
Yeah, maybe not. I'm not seeing it. You're not seeing it. Save current set as default. It's under File and Folder. Okay, that doesn't make sense, Mr. Ableton. Should be under Look and Feel. But anyway, so set up Ableton the way you want. Set up your groupings, like I've done with strings grouping, brass grouping, percussion grouping, winds grouping, synth grouping, and extras grouping. And like I said, I'm going to be very verbose to describe things. And underneath each one of those groups are 1 to 2 MIDI tracks that are holding either play or contact, like for strings, and then underneath those 2 tracks are probably 4 or 5 more tracks, and those are going to be dedicated to specific sections of the string section of an orchestra itself, like violins, violas, stuff like that. And they just reference those first 1 or 2 MIDI tracks that are holding the contact instrument. And as we learned last week from Mike, I should actually be putting play every time I want something. So if I want to use play violin, then I put a play version in that track and select the instrument I want to hear. And I want to do some viola out of some like Hollywood strings or something, I do another MIDI track which is holding play, the play engine, and I've got the violas there. But with contact, it was my understanding, unless that changed, that you want one contact engine loaded, and then inside contact load up violin, viola, cello, whatever, on MIDI channel 1, 2, and 3, and then create tracks below that that are dedicated to instantiating the sounds that are on MIDI channel 1, 2, and 3. That's the way
I've heard that as well, but I brute force it. But I never do anything as massive as you and Mike do. If I have instances of contact, I won't budge above 10 instances. But since Logic was so bad for routing uh, the contact into different MIDI instruments, and I have a Mac Pro, I just brute forced it and would have 10 instances of contact, and it worked fine for me.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Yeah, and I'm probably overly paranoid. I will say this about my machine. Let me bring up that information just in case because people often wonder, how much memory should I have? So here's my situation. I'm using 10.9.3. I'm on a Mac Pro from what, 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, it's a 2.6 gigahertz dual 2.6 gigahertz quad core Intel Xeon with 32 gigs of memory, and that's it. Inside it, I have a bunch of hard drives and stuff. But I mean, as far as the guts that are running the show, and my hard drives are none of them are 5400 RPM. They're all 7200, and I don't use any SSD drives. So that's just to get started. I use Motu cards, in case you want to know that, or Motu PCI 424, and I use a 2408, a 24IO. I have a bunch of Motu stuff, but some of it's dedicated to just video work. The HDX SDI is for just doing video. Then I have another 2408 and an outboard rig that I have out in the live room so that I can just patch stuff straight through. But that's getting beyond what we were talking about. So there you go. There you go. Go to Files and Folders, set up your system the way you like it, and hit Save under Save Current, Set as Default. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. And then when you bring in when you bring up Ableton, this is what's going to load every single time. This actually, even though that's cool, I would much rather have 5 or 6 different options. I do love that about Logic. I use Logic when I'm doing surround sound work, because Ableton doesn't have that yet, and I wish they would hurry up and do that. But when I'm in Logic, you know, I've got a bunch of different templates set up depending upon what I'm doing, and I like having that option when the screen pops up. One thing I don't like having, and Ableton doesn't do this, but Logic does, is that when you start a new project, it immediately makes you declare what you want to call it and where you want to save it. I don't know what I want to call it yet. I'm creating stuff, you know. Much of my time is spent just trying to find something interesting that sounds interesting. I'll be messing with something or whatever. And so my hard drive, thanks to Ableton, is full of Kyle's attempt at sounding cool #1, Kyle's attempt at sounding cool #2, and it's because they forced me to put a name on it. And then when I get done, if I've done something worthwhile, I will go back and rename it. But now I've got these 2 things, and I got to get rid of one of them, and I kind of hate that. Hey, Dan Reynolds jumped in the chat room. Did you say hi to him?
I did. So I want to. I'm the exact opposite. Like I am an obsessive saver, so I'll load up Ableton, and if you know, whenever I load up a DAW, I kind of know what I'm going to be doing or what I'm going to be trying to do. So I'll name something like project name, music, track 01 or something, and then I'll open it up like default template or a template that I've picked, and then before I do anything in it, I'll save it, because probably, you know, every time before I play a track to listen back to it, and then sometimes even after I stop it, I'll be hitting save. Or if I make any change that I think is okay, I'll be hitting save. Command S is just like ingrained in me.
Yeah. Well, I do Command S a lot, but one thing that's great about Ableton is I've had it crash. I've had it crash for its own reasons. I've had it crash for hard drives that died. Well, not really died, just were giving me some some trouble. And when I bring Ableton back up, it goes, hey, this thing shut down abruptly. Would you like your project back? And I go, yes, and everything is there. In all the years I've been using Ableton, I have never once said yes to that and found that I lost some work. That's amazing how they do that.
No, it's great, yeah, because I mean, Logic has a similar function where it'll bring up a crashed version of the project, but most of the time when I bring that back up, something has been lost.
Yeah, I'm lucky with Ableton that way. But I don't mean to suggest that I don't save. You should save often, save early and often. But I do get to a certain point before I save for the first time. I don't do it instinctively at the beginning of the project. And I'll tell you why I think that way, and this is probably more of a problem in me. Anybody who's listening is going to say, Kyle, you should just not bitch about having to do this. It's that when I come into my studio, I have a lot that I have to turn on. Let's give a day in the life of Kyle. I'm out in the house and I'm vacuuming, and the vacuum will have a tone or a sound to it, and I'll go, oh my God, that sounds really cool. And I'll run in and I'll grab some kind of recorder, which often happens. I got my Zoom right here beside me. Oh, you can't see it because I got my desktop up. And I'll record that sound. And I'll stop what I'm doing, right? If I'm vacuuming, I'm in the middle of the dishes. Jen has come in and she's seen oil in a pan on a stove burning, and I forgot about it like an hour ago. And she yells at me. I swear to God, if she hears this episode, she's gonna say, I know, I hate that so much. And when I come in here, I want to do as little as possible to get started in that sound, to do what it is that's in my head, because I unfortunately suffer from one of the worst memories ever. And if I don't start creating, I will forget. Or if I hear another tune, if I hear a sound, or if I bring up a DAW and there's a project that's already loaded, and I, I will just, I will not go mental, but it will so easily affect what I'm trying so hard to remember. And so when I have a lot of things to do, like answer this dialogue or this pop-up, or think about where you want to put it, or give it a name, what do you think you should name it? I'm also tempted to actually name it what I think would be the name I'm going to want to give it once I'm done. You know, I don't, and so that's why I forced myself to just say Kyle's attempt at something cool #1. And so that's why I complain about that at the beginning of DAWs, and I've probably given it more credence than it even deserves, because it's really something that I should not be bitching about, but for some reason it bothers me. And I like that Ableton doesn't force me to do it at the beginning. So, Jack, if you will take over talking about awesome stuff, I'm going to load this audio file that I recorded this weekend into Ableton, and I'm going to clip out a little part. So that way people aren't bored with silence while I'm trying to clip down top and tail an audio file.
So what I really like about Ableton is kind of the same reason I really like Logic, and I think I was fortunate that I started out with Logic, is it comes with so much built-in coolness. Logic, I think, even more so, but both of them, like, you could just take a brand new laptop, load Ableton on it, and you can start making decent sounding music. It's got so many cool built-in plugins and presets and instruments. Logic has a few more instruments in it. It's got, all the different VXX24, Sculpture, and Ultrabeat, and all of the different modeled electric pianos and stuff. But Ableton has a good bit. And I mean, if you even just grab something like Native Instruments Complete, I think that in Ableton would be like my desert island DAW for like to have on a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I mean, that's actually what I have. If you can see on my little preview screen, I have this very thin $300 Asus laptop.
Oh, do it again. Sorry. Nice.
But it's like a $250 laptop I got from Best Buy, and it runs Ableton just fine. And that's one of its two functions. Its functions are to run SoundForge and to use Ableton, and it runs it great. And that's pretty much all I have. Is I have Ableton and Complete on it, and it works just fine and super great. And a lot of the times I'm only using FM8 and Massive, otherwise, and battery. But otherwise, all of the instruments and all of the plugins are just straight from Ableton, and it's got some super cool stuff.
I agree. I'm having the weirdest thing. So I'm importing a file, and the way I do it is I just drag it into this empty area called Drop Files and Devices here, and it creates a track, an audio track, or if it's a MIDI instrument, it creates a MIDI track. For some reason, it's loading up and then telling me that the clip is deactivated.
Huh. Is it kind of like the same weirdness that Pro Tools gets, where if the file is on a different hard drive from the DAW, it gets funky?
No, I don't think so. And these are both on the same, well, not same hard drive, I don't imagine, but I've never run into this before. So why would this clip be deactivated? So as I'm saying, hey, Ableton, I love you, it does something weird. There it is. So apparently what it was doing was it was processing the clip, and it just says that it's deactivated. And to be fair, this is an enormous file. One of them's 2 gigs and one of them's just under 1 gig. But it wasn't getting the beach ball, so I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, our listeners can't see this, and even our viewers might not be able to see this, but this file is
sorry. You talking to me?
I'm telling you. But it's 57 minutes long, this file, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I see what you're saying down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Almost 60 minutes long. All right, so I'm going to do a couple things here that I'm just going to do my regular workflow and then talk about it. I hope it's not boring. But you can change the skin, and believe it or not, changing the skin of Ableton is in look and feel, where it should be. Amazing. So this should brighten it. Did it brighten it on your end? Can you now see my meter bar and everything at the bottom, or my time bar at the bottom?
Yeah. Well, we could see it before, but it was just a bit tiny, so I wanted to just clarify.
Well, I'm going to brighten this guy up. I'm just going to go like this. Go through use the arrow keys. That
So
one
do
looks
you
pretty.
do you have a do you just use the default skin or do you change the skin?
I use the default skin. The new Ableton default skin I like. Yeah. Ableton 9 is what I'm on, right? Because Ableton 8 was the last one, I think. All right, so here it is. And what I went to a convention this weekend. And I rolled dice and I killed things and I took its stuff and it was awesome. And I decided to record it. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to top and tail this file by well, not even top and tail. I'm just going to find an interesting part. I'm going to drop it into this instrument that Ableton supplies you called Sampler, and then I'm going to start messing with it until we've got some kind of cool sound effect. Sound fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I mess with it and we never get a cool sound effect, that is my fault, not Ableton's. And it will.
Or it's the file's fault.
Yeah, I'll blame the file. It was gamers. It was Obama's fault.
Thanks, Obama.
All right, so I immediately went to an area that in the file that had some peaks and valleys because it was recorded rather quietly. And let's hear it. You won't be able to hear this because it's not running. You'll hear it through my microphone. You won't hear it actually out the speakers. Let me know how it sounds.
That's right. There we go. It's a rod of wonder.
How'd that sound?
Sounds all right.
Did you hear somebody say it's a rod of wonder?
Well, I heard a rod of something. I don't know if it was wonder though.
Erotica. Clapping, no. Okay, we'll go with the first one. Go back to it's a rod of wonder. So what I'm doing here is I'm going up to the timeline where you can see the measures. At measure 1,427, which is 47 minutes and 35 seconds into the thing, you get this hand holding a magnifying glass, and if you click and drag, you can make the track bigger or smaller. I often do that. And that way I can get exactly to the hash mark that I'm going to want to put the playhead on so I can make some chopping. Must be back here. It's amazing. I think that track that sound is so small just as a straight line. Okay, we're going to grab It's a Rod. Okay, that's what I'm going to grab. So in Ableton, you can go to a hash mark, which is a division of the beat, or the measure, excuse me, and click and drag. This I love. I love so much what I'm about to do. If you have another audio file, and that's usually the best way to do it. Apple T to create an audio file, audio track, if you will. It creates it below the track where you've selected something. Go back here, select the part of the track I want to do things with, and then you do Option drag, and it takes that section, makes a copy of it, and drops it. So now we have this thing on its own track. But what it is it's a if I were to affect the main track with something, if I were to make changes to the main track, this is a reference to that track, and so those changes would happen to this little clip that I grabbed. So what you do is you hit Apple J for the consolidate menu, and it basically turns this into its own thing now. A better way to describe it is when I double click on this track, on this little clip, I'm now seeing the audio or the waveform. Had I not, let me go back to show an example actually. Let me hit Control Z to get out of that, and I'm now going to double click on this little clip that I created, and you're going to see the entire 45-minute waveform, because it is part of that. It's not unto itself. Now, within this, you can still use the magnifying glass and zoom in and see the part that you've highlighted. I don't recommend that, though. So just create a copy of it, basically. Consolidate it into its own thing, and now here we go. Now we're looking at it. And the reason I wanted to have you guys see this is because I'm going to now make this louder. Whoops, sorry, I've got two things going. Shift Tab gets you out of those zoomed in looks. Like if you're looking at piano view and you want to get back to the track, Shift Tab will get you back there. I got to turn off the one that I took it from. Now we can hear it. There it is. It's all done. Now let's make it bigger. It's this slider, Jack. Is that amazing or what?
Oh yeah.
I grabbed that slider, which is in the sample section of the waveform editor, and just make the slider go up and the waveform gets bigger.
It's a rod of letters.
And yet the quality, this is what blows me away about Ableton. I'm not hearing an inordinate amount of hiss or anything.
It's a rod of letters.
It literally just made louder the parts that I want to hear. It's like it knows my mind. And you know, we did this in a big room, so there's fans and all kinds of stuff. And even though I know it made those louder, it didn't make those proportionately louder so that they're now overwhelming the audio that I am trying to hear in the first place. That makes sense?
Yes.
Holy cow, we have people in the chat room. Hope you're chatting with them because I wasn't paying attention.
Well, Matt M wants to point out that you could have used Command J to normalize the file, but it would have taken a long time with a 57-minute file. But I think you're kind of doing the same thing he's talking about. So.
Yep, absolutely. And he's right. If you've got a smaller file, just do it that way. One thing about normalizing, though, is that, well, you know, I don't normalize on the end of a project because I lose my peaks and valleys sometimes, or it makes things louder that I'm intentionally trying to keep quiet. But in this case, he's absolutely right. But yeah, on that big file, it would have taken too long. So that's what I'm doing, and I just dragged it up. Another great feature that we're just going to have fun with here is I'm going to transpose this guy down by sliding this slider. And if you hit there's this little pot-looking thing that says transpose. I'm saying this because of the listeners who aren't watching. And you can turn the pot with your mouse up or down. It tells you how many cents you're basically adjusting it. And if you ever want to get back to the middle, you just touch the caret that's at 0. Bing, and it goes right back there. I found a lot of people didn't know that. Or you can always just Apple Z and get back out of things. Ableton is fantastic at remembering everything you've done, even when you're using a third-party VST that you've dropped in, because it kind of wraps the VST so that it can offer you controls that look like an Ableton interface, and therefore what you're doing is it has to remember the state that the VST is in when you've made a change to the Ableton interface that is wrapping around it. And so therefore, if you do Control Z, the Ableton interface, to get back to some previous setting, it remembers the state the third-party VST was in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where in some other DAWs, Logic particularly does this to me. If I make a change in Contact, well, if I didn't like it, I'm stuck with it. If I can't remember where it was before I moved it, I now have to live with it.
Well, that said, Contact has its own little undo buttons in it, right?
It does, but I've never used it that way. Like yeah, it does. It has its own undos. You're right.
It does, but I never use them either. Like whenever I'm in Contact or Massive or any sort of Native Instruments plugin, I'm very cautious with when I'm making changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, absolutely. And Ableton affords me a little less stress in that department. You know, one thing that took a while to explain why that audio file took a while to load as well, and this is important, is that Ableton is fantastic, and it's because of the clip view. Because you know, a lot of DJs use this software. They want to time audio files that they've dropped in to the beat of the project that they've created, you know, the project they're working in. And so when you drop a clip in Ableton or drop an audio file into Ableton, it will warp it automatically. You can turn that off in the Record, Warp, and Launch tab. If you go to the Warp and Fade section, Loop Warp Short Sample, I've got it set to Auto. Long samples, it's on, and I almost always have that off, but I recently did a reinstall of Ableton, and it's on again. So by default, it turns on. Sorry, my throat is dry because of this cold. Default warp mode is set to complex, which I highly recommend. I've set it to other things, and even if I'm working with a WAV file, a voiceover file, or a beat file, I still set it to complex, even though they have other options in here. Go ahead, Jack.
So Matt M in the chat wants to know what reference level do you guys master to for game audio to prevent distortion when music is mixed with FX, etc. Or is the audio just attenuated in game? Short answer, audio is just attenuated in the game.
Very true. What I found to be the easiest thing is on my master bus, I will, if this is my template, oh, see, my template needs some adjustments. I want to go do something. I go to I basically just put a limiter on it so that it's 3 cents below max, and then go have fun. Does that answer the question?
I think it does as well. I think at least what I do whenever I'm working in something that's going to be able to be have the levels changed in the audio engine, like be it Wise or FMOD or whatever it is, make the sound pretty much as loud as you can, because it's a lot easier to turn down a sound in an audio engine than it is to turn the sound up in an audio engine.
I agree completely. And sorry if your face disappeared there for a minute. When I have my screenshot up, I've got it locked. I've got Google Hangouts locked in on my view. So sometimes you're going to hear Jack but not see him. So in Ableton 9, they've got a new interface, which is blowing my mind because I'm looking at basically an Ableton 8 skin, but the interface is slightly different. I'm still used to the Ableton 8. When I see these colors, my brain goes, it should work this way. Thank God they change the colors every time they put a new version out. But so in Ableton 9, you go down to this section. Apple Option B.
Okay, Kyle's back. We're still live.
Yes, I got back before it disconnected. Whoops.
So what happened there?
I hit Apple Option B on Ableton, which is supposed to get rid of the browser view, but I was still on Safari, so I brought up my bookmarks and closed down I need an intern. Damn it. I did this last show with some weirdness. Oh, that was legit. That was electricity. This is on me.
All right, so go back to sharing screen. You're in the browser view.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay. Now I'm going to touch my Ableton so that I don't do... Okay, so Apple Option B gets rid of browse. These are keyboard shortcuts. Apple Option L gets rid of the insert avenue, alley that's below. Excuse me. Okay. Now, where were we? I have the clip. It's loud. We're going to drop it into sampler. So before... oh, no, we were talking about the mastering chain. So let me go back to Apple Option B. Go into User Library, into Presets, and then you'll see familiar things like your audio effects and stuff like that. An audio effect rack. A rack is a collection of inserts, like we were talking before, where you can drop in these devices. Chorus, reverb, whatever, like a chain of guitar pedals. And you can then, using Apple G, group those together, and they become what's called a rack. And therefore, you can name that rack. And every time you bring that rack for any track, rack for track, it'll crack your back. It will always have the settings the same. It'll always have them in the order that you place them in. It'll always have the devices that you chose. So I highly recommend people doing a lot of racks, which I guess in Logic is something different, right, Jack?
Yeah, it's more of a channel strip situation.
Gotcha, and this is basically the same thing. So I created, and you can create folders in here. You can go up to the options and create folders. And I have one that I call Moontech Mastering Chain, and I always drop it into my master track. And there it is, and these are my settings, and they always are the same. Now, I always use Mixed Gel, I always use Multiband Dynamics, I always use EQ8. Well, sometimes I don't need to use the EQ or whatever, but I can just turn them off. I'd rather have them in the chain and turn them off. I don't need them, rather than not have them, or have a basic chain, one for voiceover work, one for sound effects work. I just load them all in here, turn off the ones I'm not going to use. And as you can see with the limiter, I'm at a ceiling of negative 0.30 dB, so just below, so that things won't clip, go too high. Alrighty, so with that, B and L, we got this track. Now, before the show, I put a sampler track together, and the way I should, let me just get rid of this. Let's just do it the right way. Apple command, or sorry, yeah, Option Command B brings up the browser, and then this section where it says Places is my personal stuff, basically, according to the Apple nomenclature. But up here where it says Categories, this is the Apple stuff. Or, why does he Ableton? Thank you. I keep saying Apple. I mean Ableton. You can see this show is great at pointing out where my brain has faults and failures. So I'm going to now load up an audio effect, and it's going to be a sampler, right? So, oh wait, I'm doing the wrong one. Sorry, I need instruments. Apologize.
Instruments.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, Matt M would like to know, what is Mixgel? What is that? What does that plugin do?
Mixgel's a compressor. And I have a multi-band dynamics over here, but I like this compressor as well, Mixgel.
So what is special about Mixgel as opposed to just Ableton's regular compressor? You just like the name Mixgel? Is that what it is?
No, that's such a great question. I'm trying to figure out what it is I like about it. It sounds better, you know, but I'm trying to avoid just saying it sounds better. It works very similar to Ableton's compressor, but for some reason, I'm not hearing as much pumping from it when it's maxed out. I mean, I really have to max Mixgel out to hear some pumping out of it, but it seems that the Ableton's compressor beforehand was a little sensitive to that. Gosh, what else would be what I say is really fantastic about it? That's about it. I would say it just sounds better to me. I hate saying that because it's so arbitrary. Check it out. Try both. Put them side by side. Run some audio through them. Run drums through them. Obviously, a compressor, and just see. I would recommend seeing for yourself. It comes with a new Ableton 9 anyway. So if you have Ableton 9, it's in there. But yeah, it just sounds better to me. It just doesn't pump quite as artificially as I felt the other one did before.
Cool.
There it is. Not a great answer because it's so, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's so specific to each person what they prefer. So I dropped sampler on here, and what I like, again, you drop it into this drop files and devices here. It creates a track for you. Here's sampler. Take this audio piece here. So now I'm taking the clip that we created and I'm dropping it into the window of sampler.
It's a rod.
And I got to turn that off, don't I? Oh, I also got to make sure I got a keyboard attached to this guy. Hold on. Turn it down. That's fun. All right, so now we've done some vicious, horrible things to this audio file. And now we have to set.
It's a rod.
So by dropping it in there on middle C, it makes that the key that you're going to use to have the pure sound of the original sound of the file.
It's a rod.
So number one thing I do is reverse it. I like it. It has that snappy beginning. That's kind of cool with some noise back there. Mm-hmm. Now what I'm doing is I'm dragging when you hit reverse, it just starts playing it in reverse, which is another cool thing I think Ableton does, where other DAWs will actually reverse the look of the waveform, and you have to wait on it to process. I always thought it was pretty funny. I never really bothered me until Ableton did this, and I was like, oh yeah, duh. Let's run the playhead the opposite direction and not wait on processing. All right, we got something cool, right? Starting to get there. I'm just listening to options. I'm hitting sustain modes. This is basically loop mode when it has two arrows the same direction. This is a loop back and forth, so it's going to go reverse and forward, then reverse and forward. And this is a one shot, is basically what you're looking at here. And when you hit the release, you can do things too. Although it's not doing it for me, I've done something wrong. But we'll get back to that. So detuning is the next part. I go to detune often, and I start lowering the sound by clicking and dragging in that window. Just to get it off a little bit. You can also change the root key. And remember that sometimes the root keys will be C3, sometimes will be C4. What is it? Yamaha is C3 and Roland C4 for middle C. Is that what it is?
I learned on like a real piano, so it was C4.
Yeah.
And in Contact, I believe it's C4 as well.
Okay. Whoops, I went the wrong direction. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm going to take the detune back up to normal. Again, by hitting that caret, I can just go right back to 0. Okay, I'll hang out. Let's say F sharp because I'm weird. So that's kind of cool, right? So all we've done is mess with the sample just in the sample window. Now we have zones. We can actually make multiple clips of this. I'll do it right here. Duplicate. And you can see that I can now treat each one of these as if they're individual sound files, and I could set one to be at, let's say, C4 for the piano keys that are C4 through C5, and I can set the root key of another one to be F sharp 3 like I've done here and put that in a different part of the piano, and you can overlap them and things like that. I'm not going to do that here because it doesn't really make a lot of sense with this one. We might find later that we want to do it though. Pitch and oscillation. So I'm going to turn on an oscillator. I'm going to just start messing. Jack, if you want to talk, help yourself, because a lot of this I do silently. I don't know what to say while I'm doing it.
Well, so Kyle's just messing with the envelope parameters, the ADSR of it. And we do have a question in the chat from a unidentified 65130 who was originally called Frankie before he had to change his name.
Poor guy.
Due to unexpected circumstances. He would like to know, what final level do you guys master your sound effects at? -1 dBz or something with a limiter on? And I play pretty fast and loose. I just make sure it doesn't clip and it's pretty loud. But that said, like I showed on on last week's episode when I was showing off Reaper, I have all of the sound effects for one project in the same, all the sound effects for one project inside that project folder. So if I'm working on a game, all the sound effects I'm making for that game are in this one Reaper project. So I can listen to sound effects together and get relative levels. So it's like, well, obviously this explosion needs to be way louder than some like this gunshot or this UI click or something. So I just make sure it doesn't clip and that it's pretty loud because I know I'm going to be throwing it in like Fmod or Wise or Unreal or something where I'm going to be able to futz with the volume from there.
Gotcha. I just realized we only got 10 minutes left if we want to make this an hour show, so I'm going to move faster, okay?
All right.
So I'm affecting the pitch envelope now. Basically the ADSR of the pitch envelope. I'm trying to find some interesting sounds. I like that right there. It's reversed. I guess we're making a laser gun.
A toy laser gun.
Yeah, toy laser. Yeah. So what would that take now? So this happens exactly like we've just done it. We take some sound, mess with it, of course, immediately turn it around to see if it's interesting. I know that seems trite, but it's powerful. Reverse is very powerful. And then now we've got this new sound, but now we've finally figured out what we're making here, And this is why it's important to work in DAWs and do stuff when you're not on a project or when you're in between stuff, because you don't want to be sitting down at a game assignment, sitting down at a project and go, I need to make a toy gun. What am I going to use? Because you might not know how to make a toy gun, and but now we're trying to figure out what a toy laser gun by accident sounds like. The reason I hit the key so often also is because since it's a gun, it's going to be fired a bunch. I want to know what that beginning is going to sound like, and this is me thinking in game. What are we going to use it for? Short shots, long shots, reloads, energize. We're going to want to build all of those assets off of this sample, and so I'm trying to make sure I don't lose some of the essence of some of those things. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That seems to be the meat of it right there.
Matt M suggests a pitch envelope will laserfy it. I do that in Reaper a bit too much. I use pitch envelopes as a crutch.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's how I got started right here, is I pitch enveloped it as well, which is given that preet, that sound, because I moved my attack out to 87 milliseconds. So it's running up. So as you can see in the sampler, we've got the original sample in here. It's got some controls. Then we went over here, and these are kind of envelopes. Well, they are. They're not kind of. They are envelopes that you can affect the sound with. And then once you, like if you're doing filtering, you go to this one right here. If you want to do some modulation, which would be the next thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So modulation, low frequency modulation, is a waveform that at a low frequency we can't hear, but we can assign it to something we can hear, and it'll cause that thing that we can hear to modulate. This is the best way to say it. And now I'm going to figure out what I'm going to modulate, and it's asking me down here, do you want to modulate the volume, the pan, the filter, or the pitch? I'm going to go for the filter first. Doesn't sound like it's making a difference. Probably because the file is so short. So I got to increase the frequency so there's more of it in a smaller space. I can hear it in there, but it's not making a big difference.
Dan Reynolds suggests a sharp bandpass filter sweep will add laserness to it.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm not going to do that right now with 5 minutes left. I got to figure out where the hell I'm supposed to go. Yes, listen to Dan. He's got a good point there, just like Matt M had a good point as well.
If you guys have great ideas, we're just not going to use them.
Hey, welcome to the game industry. Jack, the producer, has put his thumbs down on that. Okay, so, and then, of course, last thing I wanted to show about Sampler, and I'm talking fast because of time, is that you can assign all of these things to MIDI. Isn't this wonderful? So you can actually assign all this MIDI information for external gear or whatever. If you wanted to affect the sound with Aftertouch, if you wanted to in Sampler do some Aftertouch weirdness with it, or have a mod wheel affect it, then you can do that, and you can say, where do I want to patch the mod wheel to? Well, I want the mod wheel to say affect the modulation of the pitch. I can select pitch, and then I can assign the MIDI and to my mod wheel itself, and the pitch will change with the changing of the mod wheel on my external device. So I just wanted to get to that point. So now, but here's what I want to do next. The end of that doesn't sound like a gun anymore, but I don't recommend getting rid of the end of the sound. I recommend using that sound as a carrier for some sort of effect. So I'm now going to go into audio effects, and let's just do some ping pong delay to it. So I'm going to grab that, and here we are with we're starting to build a chain here, right?
That sounds like the end of the song. Mark Kilborn, so they only see me now.
Oh.
They're not seeing the screen. So.
Son of a gun! Who is the producer for this show? Screen. All right. So that's what they were saying, is get off Jack's beautiful face?
Yeah, my beautiful puss is all they saw.
All right, there we go. So now, okay, so so yes, as has been suggested within, and we're obviously going to go over an hour, but I don't think you guys will mind. We have loaded a sample. We have messed with.
They still just see me.
I'm seeing, at headquarters, I'm seeing my DAW. So it might just be a delay. Let's see if it comes around. What are you seeing, Jack? You seeing the DAW?
Well, I can see whatever I want to see because I'm all-knowing.
But if you were in like neutral, what do you see? You should see what I'm commanding to view. You now,
Yeah.
my DAW now.
Well,
One thing I could.
Why share? Oh, you broke it. Go
I know.
back. I fixed it because I was sharing my screen, which was of your screen.
No.
So we're all
They
fixed.
say they see Ableton now. So Jack, go back to your beautiful face. Let's make sure they're seeing the right thing.
I don't want to.
Too late. I still don't have you up there. All right, they see Ableton. But it could just be Jack's, they're saying. But yeah, we'll wait and see. So here we are. We're in Sampler. We've loaded a sample. I've said for like the third time. We've messed with some of the parameters there. We've messed with the pitch envelope and the oscillator a little bit. Well, I turned off the oscillator. We've gone into filter view, and we did a little modulation, which you can hear in there, but it's very subtle, and it's mostly because the frequency is still it's at 30 hertz, but it's not enough to really affect this very short sample. I'm having it affect the pitch. I could turn it up a little bit more, I guess. There it is. Sorry, it was because my pitch wasn't fully integrated. That's what I was trying to do. There we go. There we go. 35. All right, and then I have a ping pong delay on, so I'm going to show you a little bit about ping pong. One thing that I was describing to a friend the other day, he said, how much do you use of an effect? And I said, you turn, this is my opinion, please don't ever consider what I say to be gospel. Unless I say I'm awesome, that's gospel. Thanks for agreeing, Jack.
Anytime.
You just leave me out here to like hang, you know? Let's see how
Yep.
long. So what I told him is that you turn it up until you hear it affecting the sound, and then you keep turning it down until you can tell that it turned off. And because I overuse effects early on in my career, I'd put just too much delay or too much reverb on something, and I found that the more subtle those effects were, the better the sound was. And that seems obvious to some people, but the real trick is you know you're going for subtlety, but where in the volume knob turning is that subtlety exist? Is it at 4? Is it at 1? Is it at 2? And so I turn it up where it's like overly reverbed, and then I keep turning it down until I think I don't hear reverb anymore, and then I turn it up a little bit. That's my secret. There you go. You're welcome, if that's helpful. So ping pong, I've got it set to 0. Can't hear it. Turn it up to... Can you guys might not be able to hear that over the microphone. Can you hear it?
No.
Yeah, okay, then I'll give it a little bit more.
Yeah, we can hear that one.
Okay, there you go. That's good enough. And then let's not use the typical. In ping pong, the Ableton ping pong thing, you can select these numbers, and they're kind of like how many repeats you're going to hear. Much faster, the lower the number. Here's 10. It's going to take a while. Are you hearing the difference?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we just want a shot, so we're going to turn that feedback down. 50% dry and wet in the case of a gun, because this is basically the difference between the delay. What's the terminology I'm looking for? Where you hear the pure sound before the delay kicks in. It's on a delay. It's, oh my God. Pre-delay. Dry, wet. This is your pre-delay knob for the ping pong. So you hear the sound, then you hear the delay. And yes, of course, we also know that it's working the way a dry-wet works. But if you want to add some pre-delay and they don't have that option here, then just give yourself some 50%. The more wet it's going to be, the less you're going to hear of a pre-delay. You're not going to hear the sound before the delay. You're just going to hear the delay. So obvious things, but I'm saying it for those who don't know. All right, that sounds good enough. And also, I turn off sync. Do you do that, Jack? Do you turn off sync a lot, or do you leave things synced up?
Oh, definitely. A lot of a lot of projects, beats per minute is not a thing to worry about whatsoever.
Exactly. With sound design, it's not. So get that off because a lot of people get stuck there and then they don't know why it's not changing the way they want it to change. It's because it's synced to the time clock here, the beats. Listen to that now.
Sounds like a robot duck sneezing in a canyon.
Or a gun.
The robot. I'm not saying the robot duck is not also a firearm. I'm just saying it is robot duckian.
I don't even know what that one does that I just turned on, so I was just experimenting with it. So, all right. But we want it to be short. We don't want it to be that long. I'm going to take the feedback down even more. It needs to be faster, so I'm going to 1. Again, feedback down lower. Because it's a gun. We're just trying to give an interesting sound. Ping pong delay might not be the best solution here. Now I'm going to start messing with this graph they have up here. There, that's much better. But basically, it is a delay, so I have incorporated into something that the game engine is going to do anyway. So, but we're trying to make a sound here that would be cool for, like, say, an indie guy, and he doesn't have the ability to use some middleware, so he wants to add the delay sounds that would be in here. You're shooting an alien kind of pistol in the middle of a desert. Here's your sound, and you can kind of hear it going off in the distance. Do you hear it, Jack? Hello, Jack.
One more time. Yeah.
I'm also affecting the pitch of the delay so that it's only delaying the high frequency stuff. So when you hear the delay, you're only hearing the pss, 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 rather than the. But this one sounds better. All right. So, but this was an exercise in Ableton, not an exercise in how to make the most awesome robot pistol sneezing into a can kind of. What is that? Whatever Jack said. All right.
A robot duck sneezing in a canyon.
Yeah, there you go. In a canyon, is that what you said? I heard can.
Well, it could be both. It could be a can made of canyons.
All right. Apple A. In the clip are the effects alley. The instrument, whatever. Inserts alley. Apple A. Apple G. Apple A selected everything. Apple G put a wrapper around it, turning it into a rack. And now Jack has to tell me what he was calling. And then you hit the save button here. And I'm now going to name it Robot. Tell me again.
Duck in a canyon.
If that's ever needed, ever, anywhere, I already have it. You guys don't. Or you could just ask me and I'll just upload it to the website and you can take it and mess with it all you want. But there you go. There is a basically my attempt at a very quick space age pistol based off of a bunch of people sitting around a table playing D&D. Jack, it's your turn.
I don't think we have another 64 minutes.
Wow, whatever. You set me up for this one then.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, what can I show? I can't show sound design in Ableton. I'd have to show like music, and that would take a while.
Well, maybe do just a quick overview of the clip view, because I certainly need educated in that time. I never spend time. Like, for instance, some things I want to know about clip view is I want to load a bunch of clips that are successive to one another. And how do I hit play on the first one and not have to hit play on the second one and the third one and the fourth one and the fifth one?
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, let me share my screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off of mine too. Be careful. Don't be in your browser when you hit Command Apple Option V. Woo!
I'm sharing my screen now, so everyone can see my screen.
Screen is hold on, there it is.
Okay, so this is just the default screen view for a new project in Live 9. This red box is my launch pad. I'm moving arrows up and down. So
Perfect.
if I wanted to have clips go successful. So I pretty much do most of my stuff in MIDI. I use some audio tracks, but mostly MIDI and sampler and software instruments and so on and so forth. I don't really use many loops. Um, but so what I'll do real quick is just recording some MIDI data to this clip. I'm not actually it's not actually hooked up to a synth or anything, and so that's set to a measure. It's perfect. So all I've done is I've recorded some MIDI data to one clip inside clip view on a MIDI track, and so now I'm going to quickly try to remember how to set up behaviors.
This is what happened with me too. As soon as I started in, I just was like, oh crap! How do you talk about the things that you do silently?
Yeah, really. But so I've copied the clip out again, and so I have a clip A and the clip B, and so what I'm going to do is on clip A, I opened up. So by default, whenever you load up the MIDI data in the bottom third of the screen, it's going to view a clip box, a note box, and then all your MIDI data. And there's a little black L circle and a little black E circle. The L circle is the launch, which sets up its behaviors. There's trigger, gate, toggle, repeat.
Oh, I gotcha.
Trigger is you click it and it's going to start working. Repeat, I think, means that it'll just keep playing itself over and over, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't see how that's different from loop. But you can have it be follow action down here. If you see, and it's got no action, stop, play again, previous, next, first, last, play, other. So I'm going to set that to next.
Gotcha.
And so, just going to stop all the data. Now I'm going to hit play A. And now after it finished playing A, it goes to B, and now it's playing B. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. Now, can I say play A for 4 measures and then play B for 2 measures and then go back to A?
I believe so. So I just, in the follow action, I changed the first number. There's 3 boxes right under follow action, which I'm pretty sure means measures. And then beats, and then maybe subdivisions of beats. So hit A, it plays through 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and boom, now it's into B. So yeah, you can do that. And then in B, you would just go to the follow action, and then there's previous. So
I'm listening.
I'm going to set this back to 1. So it's going to play measure. It's going to play clip A one time, then it's going to go to B, play clip B one time, and then it should go back to clip A.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Clip A, then I went to clip B, now I went to clip A. And you can see it actually now is just going to ping pong back and forth because of those behaviors.
Gotcha.
And you can see which one is queued up by it's got a flashing green triangle.
Oh yeah, so the one flashing means it's going to play next.
Yes.
Can you do the same? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
Can you do the same thing with scenes?
What do you mean by scenes?
Well, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but over there in your master track it says 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know that if you click the arrow in 1, it's going to play all of the samples that are in that row.
Yes. I do not know, but I'm guessing it would make sense that it would, but I'm not certain how to get to that, or because these are being the launch function is happening inside the MIDI clip itself rather than like on the track itself.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I've never really had to do that myself because I don't really automate the launch behaviors because I use a launch pad, and so I'll set up a bunch of clips. I'm just like dragging some around for the heck of it. I'll set up clips all over the place, and then I'll perform by clicking on different clips while also using the scene master area as well to trigger a whole line. And I'll figure out the best arrangement that way. And then, like I said earlier in the show, I will then just hit the record button up here and then perform that, and then boom, that's my song.
Gotcha. I was going to show. Can you show us your Launchpad and how you use it?
Yes. Okay, let me just set up something real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to open up a track called Track 11. This is...
Sorry, that was me.
This is a track I'm working on for Nova 111. I think I actually shared it on Twitter earlier today.
Oh yeah, listen to it. That was awesome.
Oh, thanks. That actually used the VT3 vocoder, and I wanted to mention earlier when you were talking about the pitch shifting knob, that I actually used the pitch shifting knob in the sample, and I raised a sample of me singing semitones, and it sounds a lot like a lady, which is really cool. It doesn't sound all artifacty or whatever.
Did you see on the side note, have you happened to see the YouTube video of Jeff Goldblum slowed down slightly?
No, I haven't.
You gotta watch that. He sounds so drunk. I mean, a lot of people sound drunk when you slow him down, but he sounds funny drunk, so check that out.
Okay, so what I have set up here, and is I kind of outlined this last week as well, is how Nova 111 is set up is there's a bass track, like a bass as in a bottom layer track.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a layer 2, or actually it's called layer 1. The first layer is called layer 0 because of programmers. Layer 2 is called layer 1, where it's when one enemy is on the screen.
Okay.
And then layer 2, so the third layer is played when there's more than one enemy on the screen. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of fade in and out depending on how many enemies are on the screen. So for this one, I think the main layer is the ones in green here plus the kick, which is in gray.
Okay.
And then layer 2, I believe, is no, I'm sorry. I think the 2 brown ones and the kick are layer 2, and then layer 3 is the pink ones over here, which is guitar. And then the fill Omni is the one with all these clips right here.
Yeah.
And it's
the Rainbow Coalition.
Yes, these are played randomly. I think once layer 1, which is the second layer, pops in. So what I'm going to try to do now is move my camera. So it probably sounds funky. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And I'm going to put this in a cool spot. And can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, can hear you fine.
Okay. Just trying to set up my camera on my Launchpad, and I'm going to stop sharing screen. So now you should see my Launchpad okay.
Yep.
So let's play some music and see if you can hear it. So I'm going to start by playing just the pad and the bass, which are these two. Can you hear that okay?
I don't hear anything. Oh, there we go.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, now I think that was playing the arrangement. So now let me go back and play. So this is kind of like the main layer. And so as I'm just hanging out in just listening to what would sound good, and I'm pretty much just triggering these different piano fills.
Is that your Rainbow Coalition?
Yeah.
all those buttons lit up are related to all of the different samples you had loaded in that track.
Yeah, these are all the different clips. And so you kind of have to look at the screen at the same time to kind of see where you are. And one cool thing you can do is come over to the mixer, and now this is all the different tracks kind of in their volumes. At least I think that is. Oh, here's the volume, sorry. So I'm actually going to drop down these 3 tracks. Now I'm going to come back to the session, and I'm going to trigger those 3 tracks. But you can't hear them because the volume's down. And now I'm going to come over to...
I have a question for you, Jack.
Yeah.
Matt M was asking in the chat, how do you like the Mini? He loves his Launchpad.
It's great. I use it all the time.
I have a Launchpad here. Also, I'm going to put up on camera just a pimp. I'm going to switch away from you for a minute, Jack.
Yeah.
Here is.
That's your launch pad?
Yes. Yes. So at Neversoft, I work with a guy named Travis Chen, a brilliant guy, and I said, hey, can you take a Launchpad and make a bunch of video game buttons? And here it is. It's pretty cool. It's heavy though.
So if you can bring it back on me, I want to show you another cool. Am I on?
Yep.
So I triggered the 3 leftmost tracks here, but the volume's all the way down, and so I can dynamically bring in that guitar right from the launch pad, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. So you're in volume view, mixer view?
It was in volume view, yes. I went to session. No, what did I do? I went to mixer and then volume.
Yep. And so right there, what we're seeing is from 0 to 10 on the volume meter. So the last 3 are at 9, right? Almost all the way up.
Yes. And see, I can bring those down too.
I love that. You got? Did you show the panning view? That's pretty awesome too. Yeah. And why this? Oh, you got to go deeper. Go into the ones that are off. Yeah. Hit that. No, not that. The gray ones, the ones that are unlit.
These ones?
Yeah. No. The square pads that are unlit.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, I see.
Now you're going further right, further left.
You guys aren't going to really be able to hear that, though.
No, they won't, but I just wanted to show it off because I think that's so awesome.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the launch pad, and this is the Mini. I wish I had the push.
Oh, yeah. You were saying nice things about that.
Yeah, the push has some really cool functions in it. And now let me switch back to my screen real quick. But so yeah, what I was pretty much showing off there was I was lowering the volumes of these 3 leftmost tracks. The guitar tracks that you were hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who usually does things all the way in the box, the Launchpad makes it very easy to work outside the box.
Yeah. Nice, man. Thanks for showing that.
No problem.
One thing that I like to do in Launch View, which I don't use it as often as you do, is I'll load up a bunch of different samples I've created for like gun sounds and things. And which we were actually, oh, you're looking at me? What is going on? So I'll load up, I'll create a bunch of samples, and if, like in a container, I use each track on Launch View to hold the different sounds that I would use in a container in like Wise or something. and then I'll use when I'm watching the video, if I have to record, how do I'm making it more difficult than it needs to be. Most of the time, I just use this for auditioning, but I have in the past live played the gunshots in a cutscene that I'm putting some sound design to. And so if they're in a row, I can just do like you were doing, just go boom, 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 and like 3 different shotgun sounds or something like that. And I find that works a little better sometimes than to just put them in a line them up, SMTP, because I'm sitting there it feels organic. I'm playing it. But if I do it wrong, I miss. And in that case, obviously, the gunshot happens after the gunshot on picture, and I have to slide it over anyway. But it is fun to have that flexibility where I could say, maybe he fires this gun 3 times, and I decided that I want the first 2 to be the same sound and the third one to be different, and I've got 3 different sounds in there. I hit record, I go 1, 1, 3 when it happens, and now it records that. I flip over to what's it called, the view I use, a range view, and then I slide them where they're supposed to be, and I'm done. And it gives me the opportunity to do many different things through clip view. Does that make sense? Is that even useful?
No, yeah. Actually, Chris Rickwood gave a talk at GDC just back in March about using battery for the same thing. He was,
nice.
Explaining how on Red Orchestra, he was on a very limited budget, and so he would just load up some gun samples into the battery, which is a very similar view to the clip view, and have different layers, and then just hit them in different sequences, and that's how he got a bunch of variations of guns. And especially for guns, battery is designed for percussive sounds. Everything that battery does well with kicks and snares and hats and so on works exactly just as well with firearms.
Yeah, I agree.
It's got, and it's, I mean, he even, was using like oscillators and the pitch randomization, and the Native Instruments pitch algorithms are pretty good, so he was able to pitch things down a little bit or pitch them up or whatever to kind of get some different stuff happening. And
nice. Yeah, the other thing I want to do is I have a friend who she'll go to silent movies with her Moog equipment and analog synths and stuff, and she will just perform to the silent movie like the old days.
Mm-hmm.
Except we're using, I can't say modern equipment, but because it's usually analog synths is what she really concentrates on. Her name's Tara Bush, Busch. So check her out if you get a chance. She does some amazing stuff. You'll find her on Twitter and Facebook and stuff.
It's pretty modern considering, a silent movie, 1910, is a lot much further away in history than a synthesizer from like 1973.
True, but based on her idea, what I want to do is I want to load up all of these sound designs I've made and make them for the movie, and then like sit with her or do it by myself or find some other person that's doing music for a silent film at some local theater, but do the sound design in real time using Ableton. I think that would be awesome.
Well, wouldn't that be kind of like a like a shock rock DJ with all, like, they have their soundboard, so whenever they want to bring up like a toilet flush sound or a puke sound or whatever, they can do that.
Yeah. But I would get the film beforehand and do the sound design for it, so it would be not just generic sound. Right. It would be something related to the. And then you go into the studio, into the theater, and you make sure you set up all the sound so it sounds good in the theater. But anyway, I just think it would be fun to do sound design live, like a lot of people are starting to do, revisit these black and white, these old silent movies, and do music for them as well.
So back to battery for a second.
Yeah.
Mark Kilborn in the chat said that we use a similar. When I was talking about using battery, he said we use a similar approach to guns in Call of Duty. They're just like drums. So
yeah.
Apparently, this is a pretty widespread practice, at least between people that make cool sounding games.
Or it's Carl Jung's synchronicity. We all have the same tools, and so we all start to think, hey, this might be a good way to use it, and we find out everybody else is already doing that. Because I know Chris Rickwood, and I had no idea he was doing that. But then I should go to that thing called GDC. I hear it's pretty cool.
Like I actually heard him give that talk back in October too at Siege down in Atlanta. He kind of sets that up, and he kind of gave the same talk there. So I got to see the instant replay, which was pretty cool.
Nice. All right, well then I'm going to, I just wanted to show one more thing I want to show a project, a screenshot of a project here. because what I showed was just 2 tracks, but I wanted to kind of show people a more fleshed out view of Ableton from my vantage point, just to show how I set things up as well. I thought this might be useful, and then we'll say goodnight. So what I've done here is each one of these tracks is named for the instrument related to it, but not necessarily exactly that instrument. I know that sounds really weird because I will morph the instrument, so I try to name things so that it says, here's the instrument, here's the preset, and then here's the morph that happened later is usually how I try to set those things up. But I'm going to hit play on this really quickly. So some of these names will seem weird is what I was getting at.
It's better than names I hear.
I also create a lot of tracks, and then I rough them. If I'm not going to use them, I keep it because I may go back to them later. So I don't know, Jack, if you save a lot of roughs. So this here is what I wanted to get at. This is my drum set out in the live room, but I got tired of playing it live every time I needed drums in something. So I went into Machine and sampled in all of my different drums and different ways that I hit them. In this case, it was brushes. And now I've got my kit. And I thought it was pretty cool that I can now have permanent access to my kit without having to tune the heads or anything. Isn't that like the ultimate laziness?
So now you can just sell that drum set. You don't need it anymore.
No way. It's a one of a kind. I'm so happy to have it. It's all wood, everything, rims and everything. It's a pretty amazing kit. It was this guy makes them regularly now, but this was his prototype that he went to NAMM with so many years ago and finally got money to be able to make his own kits. And then he sold the prototype, and I got lucky to get it. But you know, this is the cool thing about Ableton is, or using any DAW, is find an instrument that might be a big thing to set up. For Christ's sake, drums are a pain in the ass to set up, or a synthesizer that goes out of tune too easily. Catch it someday when it's in tune, sample that thing in there, and then you can start using it without actually having to set it up. I think that's pretty important.
So you said you're using Machine. Do you use the Machine hardware, or are you just using the plugin?
No, I use the Machine hardware as well. I keep it right beside me, which I will. Never mind. That's really not important, is it?
No, I just wanted to know if it was worth getting. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So do you use it regularly?
I do. That's why it's positioned right beside me.
Well, see, but that's where my water goes. I don't know what I'm going to do. Actually, no, my launch pad's pretty much there you go. Well, that wasn't water, sir. That was something different. That
was a Tequila Sunrise. But the point that I'm making is at desks, Jack, they have this amazing modern thing where they have 2 sides to them, one to the left and one to the right. And so if something is on the right, you can put something else on the left.
I guess, but that's where my VT3 is.
Excuses to not get Machine. Yeah, I like Machine. I don't know if I need that big, heavy-duty one they just came out with. But anyway, so that was my Ableton project that I'm working on most recently. I'm about the royal we. I'm about 10 hours into this project, and as you can see, I've already got how many tracks in this thing? God only knows. It says 23, but some of those are groups, so it doesn't really. Like here are my guitars that I all group together, and of course I can solo things. And here are the guitars doing something.
What are they? The drums, because you also have the drum solo.
And I'm automating my guitar. This is nothing that people who don't work in this industry or any kind of audio industry don't know. So it's no need for me to continue on. But anyway, love Ableton. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It sounds amazing. Check out that Glue Compressor. Whoever was asking about that, and you know, come up with your own decision as to why it's good or bad. I just think it sounds good. But then again, I have some 3630s over here that I modded. That, you know, they're known for, at least this 3630 is known for being one of the cheapest and worst compressors known to man. But Tape Op magazine said if you clip these 2 wires, all of a sudden they become these amazing compressors. So I bought 2 of them and they beat them, and they were right. So I'm not afraid of doing some weird things or choosing some stuff that I can't really describe why I like it.
Yeah, I still have my 3630 back here. I haven't modded it yet, so it's not hooked up.
when you do mod it, the most important part is to make sure that it is plugged into the wall, so you can hear the difference when you're clipping the wire.
Right, right. Should I also like be standing in a pool of water when I do this? Perhaps
Yes.
while it's raining outside.
Yeah, and a plastic bag over your head because you see better through the white plastic of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to yell at me. He used to say, "Take this bag and go play in traffic." I always thought that was pretty funny. Or play in the basement of a boathouse. Yay! All right. I hope we've covered an Ableton, a good Ableton look and feel tutorial. It's so deep, man. It's impossible to cover in an hour and a half everything that you could do with Ableton. Well, any DAW for that matter. But yeah. So with that, Jack, you want to promote anything?
What do I want to promote? You put me on the spot. So last week on Designing Sound, we posted. I already pimped this last week, I think, but I'll do it again since it's out now. Back on Monday, we had a cool interview with Chris Sweetman. He's in the UK working at Microsoft. He came up with a cool interior sound design library that you can get on Sam Justice's website. It's a pretty small library. It's got some cool stuff. Like he got some ambient sounds from like a derelict Star Wars sound set, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cheap library, so it's definitely worth getting. And then we also had a sound design podcast roundup, which the Game Audio Hour was on. That's on designingsound.org.
Nice. Why is it on me and not you? There it is. Fixed.
Is it on me now?
Yes.
Otherwise, I don't really have anything to promote yet. I got some cool stuff in the works, but I will let everyone know about that many, many times
Yes.
when that happens.
The most important thing in the world. And so I guess also, if anybody wants to put the word out, we're looking for an intern for Game Audio Hour. I think Jack has told me enough times, Kyle, get an intern. So anybody feel like doing some video editing? I've refined it down to like some basic processes, but due to work, I run out of time and I can't get to it. So I don't get them up on iTunes as quickly as I need to. And for Christ's sake, it wasn't until yesterday that I realized that I didn't even put the last show on our damn website. So yeah, that's kind of bad, right?
No, it's all right.
All right. Well, it was a fun show, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm mumbling at this point because we need to sign off. Say goodbye. Say goodbye, Jack.
Goodbye, Jack.
Goodbye, Jack. And hopefully we'll see. Thanks, Chatties, for logging in on this Memorial Day. I really appreciate you coming, and I really do. And also, we miss you, Vince. We miss you, Mike. We miss you, Alex. But they were all busy. I just wanted to let them know that we were thinking of them.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.